world is not meant to be good, bad, black, white, 1 and 2, 1 and 0. It's not binary. It's chaos. Around the late 40s, the atom was split. We discovered that everything was forever changed. When we discovered the word could be cut up, that sound could be cut up, that everything to do with culture could be cut up and reassembled in ways that didn't exist before. That will be seen as the most radical, important thing that happened this century.
PMT, you know, pre-millennial tension. Surely the end of the millennium is a good time to reassess what's happened in the century and to look with a longer lens.
There's no room for people who are resting on their laurels, who are being conservative, who are being reactionary. It's all moving so fast. All we can do is enjoy the ride. I don't think any of us know where we're going.
When I was a kid, cars were the things you hot rodded. But today, it's computers and electronic synthesizers. I think electronic music is the hot rodding of, you know, it's the hot rodding of the 90s.
Pretty much music as we have come to understand it today, I mean, in the last 30 or 40 years, is all electronic. I mean, we'll hear it on the radio. That's electronic, whether you're hearing a recording of an acoustic instrument or not. I mean, you're hearing electronic music.
Since the time we were able to record music on a certain medium and reproduce it, I think that's the beginning of whatever electronica. Anything happened after that. It's all electricity, and it's all a way to have a facsimile of sound in some kind of medium.
Electronic music many times is more about the character of the sound than the actual composition.
It's just sounds, it's just noise, but organized. Organized noise, organized sound.
People have a cliched idea about what a melody is. A melody, I think, could be constructed of noise or different sound.
The technology has allowed us and people like us to, make the boundaries between media much more fluid, and we no longer really think of sound and image as separate things anymore. We work with them together, So when you, in a very simple, when you press a key, you get an image and a sound, or a piece of text and a sound, or something else changes.
This is no more than the sort of hippie idea of everything is everything, but there are new realizations, new evidence coming up, new slants on the idea that everything is connected and that, as Heraclitus said, as above, so below. Up people, experiences, records, analog, digital, toys and tools. It's all about mixing things to get new hybrids.
It's never one thing. It's always something different. It's chaotic. It's calm. It's, you know, it's just forever changing.
Quand j'étais enfant, j'avais dans ma tête des sons nouveaux, des sons inouïs, des sons que je ne pouvais pas interpréter. Je crois que c'est là le propre de la musique concrète, c'est qu'elle ne vient pas de l'interprétation, elle ne vient pas de l'exécution sur un instrument, elle vient de l'imaginaire. Et c'est de là que la musique concrète est née, dans le studio inventé par Pierre Schaeffer. Pierre Schaeffer a eu des idées de production de sons par des moyens tout à fait différents, c'est-à-dire un son où on coupe l'attaque, un son que l'on prolonge par réverbération, un son que l'on prolonge par répétition, et une sorte d'alchimie qui n'existe pas dans la musique d'orchestre. Vous voyez, c'est une musique qui n'est pas jouable sur l'instrument, mais qui est jouable sur les appareils électroacoustiques.
One of Kraftwerk's key innovations was to say that as soon as you enter your car, you're in a musical instrument. As soon as you travel on a train, you're in a musical instrument. This sense of being effortlessly pulled along through stations across Europe was a very exciting world. It opened a new world of automotion which really impacted on people like Grandmaster Flash and people like Afrika Bambaataa.
We were all turned on by Kraftwerk. I was turned on by Trans-Europe Express when I was working at a record store when I was in high school. And then when I moved to New York, you would continually hear Trans-Europe
Planet Rock obviously used the melodies from Trans-Europe Express, the beats from Kraftwerk's Numbers, a whole bunch of other tracks, and it brought them together in a way which suggested a universal sound, a kind of universal electronic sound.
Obviously, with Planet Rock, we married that sound with, you know, with the Bronx, with rap, with that whole other thing.
You could hear previously disconnected worlds suddenly kind of imploding together. You could hear the world of Kraftwerk impacting with the world of the Bronx, and that seemed very exciting because at the time those two worlds seemed very far apart, but Bambaataa connected them.
Sort of analog electronic stuff that came out of Kraftwerk that was early electro, sort of, and funk was sort of like, I don't know, it was like sort of human sounding or natural sounding, but totally synthetic at the same time. And it was just a doorway into something for us. It was like, hey, this is totally futuristic, what do you think? And for kids, it's brilliant because you're just like, you know, all you're thinking is sci-fi, space, future. What's this? Excellent computers, you know, oh, wicked, music made on electronic gear, I could do that.
The music is based on the experience of survival, the experience of oppression that we had. When the riots happened in 1967, you know, that brought our togetherness into the city of Detroit, you know? The city was in turmoil, we had riots, we had different types of cultural and racial barriers that, you know, plagued the city at that time. So basically now we're prodigies of that environment that happened back in those days.
Detroit is such a desolate type city, you know, that you almost have to dream of the future to kind of escape the reality of your surroundings, you know, and I think that was incorporated and instilled in the music.
That's just Detroit, because it's a working town. It's just a working town.
You can only dream of what the rest of the world is like, and you want to find yourself trying to get out of there, and you want to put yourself in a position where whatever you think about, whatever you feel, you want to believe that it's going to help you get out of that city.
The Detroit techno, Derek May, Cameron Sanderson, Juan Atkins, they were looked up at as the successors of Kraftwerk, the guys who took techno to the dance floor.
It has spread, and it's all called techno or dance music. It's all electronic music. regardless, because it's created with technological equipment. Maybe that should be the only thing, dance music, because everybody has a different vision of what techno is now, you know.
A lot of this music is about states of stepping outside your normal self, ecstatic states, and sometimes they are just induced by the music, just by the hypnotic power of the music and the sensation of the lights.
We look around for stimuli, you know, and from color to music, we're bombarded with stuff.
It's all about this extreme sensations of speed and intensity, which again is a kind of ecstasy.
Genesis Fiore interview, take 2. All music is innately psychedelic.
The interface between technology and drugs is a running theme through pop history. The whole evolution of the music in the last 10 years has been conditioned by ecstasy and also by changing drug use. A shift, you know, there's the music in England changed dramatically in the mid-90s when a lot of people who'd been taking ecstasy for several years started to experience the dark side. The music went very dark, and that was actually one of the pivotal moments in which rave music turned into jungle.
Jungle is a convergence of all kinds of musics that in their own form would never have mixed. So it's a kind of, I call it a mixological music. It's a kind of illogical music which combines dub, which combines the bass of dub with the breaks of beats, with the synthesizer of techno, and it brings all these forms together.
On one level, jungle is sped up hip-hop, obviously without the rap element.
Hip-hop mutated into jungle because I think Britain was kind of wanted to emulate America, and we all wanted to be b-boys and homeboys.
Go, crowd, just go. Crowd, just go.
But it's definitely not just hip-hop. That is not what jungle is. Jungle is a truly British urban experience.
jungle is a product of the technology. It's a product of digital technology. It's a form of music that couldn't have happened without those tools becoming available.
A mixer, these days it moves on from old style mixers which are analog, still the best sounding though, but these days you've got digital ones which are fully recordable, and then at the end of the day getting everything to sound right, and that goes back from using valve or valve emulation effects to get a warmth and a sound that you used to get when we were making breakbeats, or when people were making breakbeats in the 60s and 70s. And then also something really modern, which is, it's called a finalizer. It really maximises the sound you can get out of a recording.
I've actually got a little Yamaha sampler. Can't see it actually. It's a little keyboard, like a toy. It's got like a phono input and an output. Like, so basically you can, like, you know, use it with a studio or whatever, make up sounds on it, you know, and like make like loads of sounds on this. You know. Like loads of stuff on my new album is done with this. People forget how amazing that is, you know, and like what you can do with it.
Let the bass kick.
I just like the, you know, the thing of getting out of bed and getting your breakfast and come back, and then you're straight in the studio, you know. You don't have to go down the road, get on a bus to go to the studio. You're just there, you know, it's hands-on straight away. You wake up in the middle of the night and do a track, you know. I mean, it's like, that's what, I don't know, that's what sort of like revolutionised it for me.
The output of the ring modulator, I'm sending it through to some other filtering. You can get some really out there, amazing, weird sounds. And then I would either take that through the desk and sample it on here.
So it's all based around technology. You can't get away from that, and it dictates, you know, what music is going to be.
The future sound of London, live via ISDN.
I think in the modern day, we're equally versed in using any creative software. That software can make movies, can make animation, can make sound, it can broadcast. We were never musicians, we were just collage artists. It's the juxtaposition of flavors between images, sound, text to try and produce feeling. Yeah. Why do we do ISDN? Because we think that most music is based on the idea of instant gratification for the artist. Gratification through contact with audiences. And with so many people basing their ideas of entertainment around that idea, we think there has got to simply be something interesting about the opposite. A response that myself as an ego wasn't entirely happy with, because there's part of me that doesn't want to be cut out of the process, but in a way I see myself as a sacrificial lamb. I sacrifice myself in order to feel.
I guess the whole thing comes about from people sort of like wanting to see an act on stage and being able to put, when you're listening to the music, put a face to that music and just making the whole thing work. Yeah, we're not a faceless band. We never wanted to be the two keyboard players behind the keyboard who keep their head down and that type of thing. I mean, like I'm at the back, so people know I'm there. We're just not afraid to say, yeah, here we are, let's go.
I don't know what I am. I don't know what I'm going to become. I'm that man that's crossing the desert and I'm not stopping off in a safe little warm cranny.
Future sound of London, such antisocial people, they won't even go to a party, they have to do the gig down the telephone.
And you don't even understand, well, what's the point? Goodbye.
Hello? Hello? Hello, hello? Hang up. Oh well.
There's a great struggle going on, you know, of what do we do with our humanness? What do we do with our virtual selves? When do we give up our humanness and accept the machines?
Sound, because to me that's like heaven. You've got the drive of a beat and you've just got these soundscapes, like just, I don't know, heavenly atmospheres, if you like, around it, and the combination of the two is just dynamic in my eyes. Music comes from the 70s because the last 20 years we've been just sampling the 70s and getting breaks and loops and wah-wah guitars, saxophone, flute riffs. It's all from the 70s, do you know what I mean?
And this idea that you created this seamless flow of music that ran all night, created by a DJ, that came from disco, and that has been one of the most radical changes of music in the last 30 years. Giorgio Moroder did an incredible thing. He was one of the most important influences on disco.
I want to do a kind of a futuristic record with Donna Summer, and I said, why don't I do it with the new Moogs or whatever that we had at that time, and that was the song I Feel Love.
Which was created almost entirely on the Moog synthesizer.
I think the only non-synthesizers was a bass drum.
Really launched that whole area of sequenced high-energy disco.
Disco dancing here. Look at the Donna songs of Donna Summer, like Love and Love You Baby. I mean, that first hit, it has her on the audio track, like, you know, basically having an orgasm.
I must say that at the beginning we used the synthesizer a little bit too much as a gimmick, like whack, whack, all those interesting, but I guess, kind of boring sounds. And while lately the synthesizer became more like an instrument than a sound effect machine.
At the beginning, I think everybody outside of the electronic music field thought that synthesizers were supposed to imitate traditional instruments, whereas the people who were inside electronic music wanted to use synthesizers to make completely new sounds.
What's happened is now we're respecting the disco area for what it stood for, because most of the records that are very popular and predominant right now are disco cut-ups of very famous riffs of a lot of disco music which was popular in the 70s. So if it's gone around full circle, it's incredible. After the disco culture died, and then you had the rare groove kind of following, and the hip hop, which was very predominant today even. But then the beat slowed down, and everybody was just getting into the slow, chunky groove. And I just think, in the end of the day, the energy of dance music culture was lost by it, which then producers in Chicago and Philadelphia and New York decided to create the disco, the early 80s disco version of house music.
Disco died in '79. There was a void in the music, which when Frankie Knuckles was in New York, he went to Chicago, he caught the very beginning of it.
He opened up a club which was called The Warehouse. So after a while, people get used to saying things, so they just chopped it from warehouse to house.
People would go out after hearing Frankie play at the Warehouse and be like, we want some of those house records, meaning warehouse records, the club warehouse.
Mainly what it was just disco and upbeat R&B songs, and they just named it house because it was played at the house.
My defining record is this record called Move Your Body, the house music anthem. Another one is this other one called Acid Tracks that I produced at the beginning. That was the first use of this machine called the TB303, which a lot of people call the Acid Tracks machine. Actually, that was the second record that I used that on, but it was called Acid Tracks, so everybody started calling it Acid House, Acid House, Acid House, Acid House, And they started doing that, and German techno came from that form of music. It was like a faster form of acid house because they were using TB303s and 909s and all that stuff.
Well, the TR-909 has 9 different sounds. The kick drum, it's tunable, meaning you can, one of the beauties of the machine is that you can edit in real time. You can change the parameters.
The 909 was the first drum machine we made that had sampled sounds. We actually had digital samples, but they were very rudimentary samples. Did not sound incredibly great. But they became the standard. I mean, you can't listen to a house track without hearing a 909 drum kit in it. It's just the standard.
Okay, this is the 303. When it originally first came out, the 303 was about in the $600-700 price range. It was trying to mimic acoustic instrument, but it didn't. The 303 lost its value, and that's why a lot of these guys in Chicago and Detroit and Germany can pick up these things in the used market for $50 to $20. That's it.
That was a distinct sound. That was the acid sound, and it was kind of like incorporated with the house. But then as the years went on, there's many styles of acids, like really hard, aggressive acid, and then the acid house, like, kind of funky stuff. So it just, over the years, it just progressed, and, it's just sprouted out into a whole different, type of music.
This whole subgenre of house music, that's just based on the 303 and the squelchy bass line that you're going to get out of a 303, and everybody's chasing after that one thing, But then after a while, how many songs can you hear with that sound in it, How much can you put up with of just this one thing?
Let me see your dick work. That ass. Let me see your dick work. Let me see your dick work. Let me see your dick work. Let me see that pussy work.
Actually, I do like a little R&B and a little rap and stuff, which is pretty cool. And the house music is where the money at though for right now. So I got to stick with that for a minute. You know what I'm saying? You know how other people were like, well, I'm gonna do opera. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, I forget that. I'm gonna go ahead and do this house because it's making the money.
I think people always accepted that it was going to be disposable. It was a hedonistic culture to start with. It was a hedonistic culture that became something far more relevant, that acquired far more cultural significance than I think its original participants ever expected.
Life is hard. You gotta go bust your ass at a job for 8 hours a day, making shit money, barely able to pay your bills. Like, you need a good 6 hours where you don't have to worry about shit. Like, you need to be able to have a chunk of time that you go somewhere and, like, no matter what, it's raining outside, I got $2, like, my girlfriend left me on the way here, I locked my keys in the car, like, all kinds of shit.
People still live for the weekend. It's a very different weekend from the weekend they had 10 years ago. I mean, unfortunately, the way that the government society here has viewed the whole scene has really damaged the scene quite a lot. The days of the huge illegal raves are long gone.
This is on. Well, obviously there's been some sort of a problem.
I went
there, and on my way back to the firehouse, I came across this, and I knew what this was. I knew this was a rave.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Looks like we have to shut it down.
When you come from
What do you think about the party being closed down?
It was my birthday. Yeah, she's turning 18.
You should go in the party now. Even being arrested. They're being handcuffed right now.
There's handcuffs on Abe in there.
Yeah.
It's like a big chain of like 6 people in handcuffs. Got them all.
Newsman.
Sort of.
Sort of. What?
I'm a raver that doesn't do drugs, that goes out to dance to the beat, have fun, yo, that's what I'm addicted to. I'm addicted to the unison, everybody jumping to the beat at once. And the police and the fucking law and fucking fuck all that shit, because they won't let us have our fun, man. I think that shit is improper. Word, right? You hear some music, some kids having fun, it's all over. Hold on. Word, represent, yo.
In order to have a paradigm shift of any sort, people need to be able to expand their minds. The times that we've seen great cultural shifts, you know, in the mid-60s and the mid-80s have been times when there was definitely the assistance of various tryptamine molecules and others, you know, played their part in that.
Inspiring. I think that's what interests people in it sometimes, because people are looking for extreme experiences, and that music's one way of sort of triggering that off or getting to that state. That's one of the reasons why drugs are so popular in music, because it all just combines up some huge disorientating experience.
I think that many people are frightfully confused and upset, and one reason for that is, in fact, traceable back to the philosophical roots of the Industrial Revolution. I mean, according to Descartes, the way you solve a problem is by breaking it into little pieces. So we developed a culture in the West, particularly, that is exceedingly good at breaking problems into tiny little bits and pieces. So we're good at that. What we're not good at is putting it back together again.
The techno culture has actually become far more disparate. I think the homogeneity that we saw 10 years ago, when it was just one scene, has fractured. It's become far more tribalistic. People are very much protective and very much into their own scene, be that, for example, say techno has divided into GABA techno, Detroit techno, acid techno. I think the techno that people are into in America is very different from the techno in Britain, is very different from the techno in Germany.
I keep finding these raves lately, especially the bigger, I'm talking about big commercial raves. Now if I get offered a gig, I'll kind of try and find out what it's all about, what the motivation behind throwing the party is. Because quite often
these things are just about money.
Well, it's different from what it used to be. It used to be people coming together to share like what they had, their uniqueness, and now it's about just like it's about nothing what it used to be. No, the prices are getting way too high. Wait, how much was $15 used to be expensive for a party. Yeah, I know. $30. This was $30. This is $30.
Yeah, it's being like all cramped up, like all week, like, you know, doing a daily routine, going to school, going to work or whatever. Gets on you after a while. Just go to a party on the weekend and just, you know, do whatever you want to do and just have fun.
It's something that you have to experience for yourself to really understand exactly where we come from. Because on the outside it looks ridiculous to some people, but to other people that's our reality. That's our thing. I don't know.
Culture of amnesia. How do you get people to create their culture? Well, you pull away all sorts of memory and see what happens, which is kind of what has occurred with this late 20th century generation. Most people really just don't want to think about historic references. They don't want to think about their engagement in the world around them. It's much easier to be a passive consumer and wear the right Nike shoes or something. I don't know what. It's just, but it's also an internal colonized situation, mentally speaking, for a whole generation.
In the beginning, it started in some really small places in the German techno scene, I would say, mostly in Berlin and in Frankfurt. The next thing was like these East Berlin parties in the big venues. And then we had like this explosion of energy. And I always call it the liberation dance of the East Germans. This effect of these people suddenly, you know, screaming, throwing their hands up, throwing themselves on the floor, getting up, jumping about. And that really made Berlin techno. The love rate started even before the wall came down, 89. The 91 love rate, I think, was the first where people from all over Germany, from east and west, party together. Been 80 years now, and we remember the first one with 150 people, and now it was 1.5 million. That's quite an incredible explosion.
At the end of the day, it's all about like a stupid party, and you see that this has nothing achieved. Everyone who says it's this new generation, everyone is happy about new technology, I mean, that's so naive and stupid. So I think it was boredom that led to fascism in the 20s in Germany, and not hate. And this is exactly what's going on at the moment in this society. Everyone is so bored that no one wants to change anything.
It's a dead world, and it's about that time to clear things here. One generation follows another, but something in my head says, keep going, don't give up.
For the techno guys, techno is a revolution, and it's really not, you know. Techno exists since, I don't know, 6 years or anything like that, 6, 8 years, and it's nothing, it has nothing revolutionary. There's no revolutionary aspect. And our music, our noise, our hardcore drum and bass, this is really, we want to shock the people with our music. And we're getting shocked of our music. When I'm hearing one of my records, I think, oh my God, what I've done. We have those freaked out frequencies, you know, those very high, very low frequencies, always very distorted and hard sounds. And it's not only the drum and the bass. We have very, very ill atmospherics in it. We have always those Stahlton beats, nennen wir das. That's, how's it called? Stahltonne. What's that? Trash, was heißt Mülleimer? Trash can beats. You know, when you turn it around and you beat on the other side.
The actual beat for a dance floor, to keep a dance floor dancing all night, is 133 beats per minute. I mean, I play faster than that, but that's the speed a normal crowd. I mean, you could have people on drugs, people drinking, but an average person on a dance floor wants to dance to music at 133 beats per minute. And that's what I've learned over 10 years of doing this every week. You keep it at that tempo, you keep the floor going until early morning. You start playing jungle, happy, hardcore, gabba, or whatever, you get them a little testosterone jump where they're like this for a half hour and you lose it, you know.
Gabba, both the bass and the kick drum fuse together into a jackhammer motion, which allows a kind of pistoning kind of quality. Gabba therefore becomes much more the music for, it becomes much more apocalyptic and much more nihilistic because there's no bass anchoring your heartbeat. It becomes kind of heart attack music because the music attains such a punishing rate of velocity. It reaches BPMs of between 180 and 210, 230 BPM, that it becomes not so much a series of kick drums, more kind of drilling noise, which kind of pummels your head and kind of literally drills through your cortex. And it allows a certain synaptic rearrangement, which is so intense and so strong that it becomes a kind of a terror dome, a war zone. It becomes a kind of how much can you take.
Make some noise now.
Just music got harder and harder, and people at the time, people who'd originally been to house music, complained that it was also heavy metal techno. That's the way it went. Then people inevitably burned out and tried to go in softer, more chilled out directions, and that's when you had the whole movement towards ambient techno and electronic listening music.
I think there is a transition, and I think that what used to be called ambient music is the place to look for the more interesting philosophies and ideologies, because it's more amorphous, it's less formularized, and it doesn't require a rhythm. The rhythm is always a very, very difficult place to work.
For ambient stuff is more like texture and like shape of sound, so it's not involved so much, you know, melody and things. And microwave sound. It's like, to me, this is like living acoustic sound.
Electronic music is a very direct reflection of the environment. In one sense, I think there's more of a sound awareness in our culture now, which is related to why music is taking the turn that it is. Maybe the awareness of constant electronic and industrial processes makes us more conscious of a certain kind of sound.
Sounds are continually happening whether you produce them or not. But is this music? Is it a noise? If it isn't a noise, why isn't it? Is music music? Do we have any music? But seriously, if this is what music is, I could write it as well as you.
Electronic music for me started with people like John Cage and Stockhausen. It didn't start with Kraftwerk or even Can, you know, it was going in the 30s and the 40s. And again, it's just technology. Once people can get their hands on it, you know, it becomes bigger and bigger.
That still leaves Richard Williams on site.
I was very liberated by the ideas by John Cage, where he talked about you embracing your environment. So if you're trying to work and you're trying to write or make a film or something, and you hear these sounds in the background, you have to accept the fact that this is part of the situation you're in. It's that environment, whether for good or bad, it's reflective of that situation. When I produce my work in a live situation, I've talked about sound Polaroids. I talked about this work being very reflective of that local environment. It's a kind of invisible map of the city.
My input into this digital discourse as just the individual loops. I have some sound file archives containing some several thousand loops, just in each of them with several iterations and versions. And so I see myself as just editing the source material.
You need to search now.
Incorporating disruptions is how I like to talk about them, is because specifically within the electroacoustic ambient community, music is used for kind of tripping out and it's a metaphor of escapism. So for me, these disruptions ultimately are about snapping the listener into their environment.
I color the silences in different layers so that, for example, there's a silence, and then I take off one of the silent layers, and I hear another silent layer. And then I take that second one, and I hear a third silent layer, because there is no absolute silence in the world. And I'm still trying to expand this relation between nothing and something. Very early, I thought that a microphone is a musical instrument, like a bow or like a percussion instrument, whatever you use. I use a huge Chinese gong with all kinds of materials: rubber, wood, metal, glass. And the rhythm, for example, yan dan 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 dan. making such movements with the microphone over the surface of the tam-tam. And all the movements are notated as the actions to bring the tam-tams into vibrations.
Stockhausen was very important for all the young generation at the moment, and most of them don't even know why. You see, what he has done is not, I'm not now speaking in terms of his outstanding quality as a composer. He had so many practical things done and invented, where, like the dub mixer, he was the first dub mixer in the world. He made it in the 60s, where he was, where he had
earlier, in the late 50s already, yeah.
Yeah, he was a dub mixer. All these practical things, what he has done, and it's showing the way, you can say, for the next 50 years at least.
I would say Stockhausen is the closest to what hip hop, you know, in its true form, what Stockhausen was doing, because that whole idea of, hey, this is what it is, and we can do something with this and shape it and form it and translate it into a form of expression.
When you cut and you edit, you can do it in such a way that no one will ever know. In those days, we still were doing it with a razor blade. I mean, it's not like digital recording now, and you got the 24 tracks, and you got all kinds of equipment. You can put it on a computer. You can do all the things you want to do. If you want to move that thing over, I mean, that would, you know, not one bar, not one beat, but maybe a beat and a half or a beat and a 16. So you create a wash, you know. There's a lot of things you can do today that we didn't have the techniques to do them in the late 50s and the early 60s.
What we hear on released records from that period is the product of a great deal of analog tape editing, which is no different now than computer manipulation of sound. So the edits determine the piece of music that you bought in a store in the 70s even. And I think we didn't know that then. We thought this was the way people played music. No more than we hear a record now based on techno or hip hop and things and think that this is how it happened, but it's all manipulation.
Two master tapes, put them together on two different machines, and record on the third one and try to sort of sync them up, but not sync them up just a fraction. So you wonder, when you listen back to some of the Miles things, for instance, you wonder how this sound was created. Now, I did all of that in the studio. Miles, I'd say, do you like it? If you like it, we'll leave it in. If you don't like it, I'll remix it again. I consider the studio musical instruments. I toy with it all the time. I mean, there are things that I keep asking them to do. No, we can't do this, we can't do that. I said, I don't want to hear we can't do that. Let's go do it.
I'll do a transformer combined to a crab scratch. So that's.
scratching and cutting were whole new kind of techniques, new operations applied to sound. And what they did was they made vinyl. They kind of activated and switched it on. Before that, all people did was put the vinyl on the record and listen to it. Suddenly the turntable obviously became a musical instrument in its own right. Not only that, but vinyl became a kind of a useful archive. It became something that you could use to build a new sonic composition of your own.
Different kind of scratches make different sounds. Yeah. Like that one.
And the naked penguin scratch.
Mm-hmm. The lips on the back of the bear scratch. Like the stuff we do, we don't even have a name for it. What do we call it? Turntable jazz? Or scratch, hip hop. I don't even know what would you call it? Turntable,
psychedelic scratch jazz.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Something like that.
Turntable music.
Mm-hmm.
There it is.
Yeah, turntable.
Turntable
Well,
music.
not really, because if you play a song on it, like if you play a techno song on it, that's still turntable music too.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Something else.
So it's something.
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, we'll call you up. We'll page you.
Yeah, we'll let you know.
Attention all humans. We are invading the planet Earth. Be careful.
If you're in the passenger seat, you would wear this side to avoid the sun, and if you're driving, you'd probably wear this side because the steering wheel's on the left side of the car.
If you're eloquent at your style on two turntables with all these effects in it too, you could, the sky's the limit. You could do dub reggae tricks, you could do, rap tricks, you could do all types of different things.
We're not going to arrive at a brand new sound or note or anything. It has to be a combination of elements that create another. Two together creates a third, and all these different things go into creating a new. It's the only way I think, to arrive at something a little different is by combining things now.
When the child gets hold of a toy, it does what it wants. If you give a baby a guitar, they'll jump on it, smash it, hit it. They won't play chords. They won't do a beautiful piece of classical music. They will see what the entire thing does. Limited time, fill it with fun and adventure, and expect to occasionally be shocked and surprised. And I think when in doubt, make no sense. No sense is good, and nonsense is good.
I believe that you really can't burn anything out by trying something new. And even if you can't burn it out, it can be fixed. Try something new.